work session of the Salisbury City Council. In the event of an emergency, we ask that everyone remain calm and exit through the double doors to the parking lot located in the front corner of this building. If the doors are blocked, please exit through the door to my right by pulling the fire alarm located to the right of the door under the monitor. Please let us know if you need any assistance. At this time, we ask that everyone please silence your phones. Public comments will be heard after each agenda item. If you plan to speak, please fill out a form on the table near the door you came in and give it to the city clerk. At this time, we will have a moment of silence for Captain Brian Lewis, who recently lost his life. And Captain Lewis was a member of the Salisbury Fire Department. Thank you. Those wishing to pay their respects to Captain Lewis can do so tomorrow at the Emmanuel Wesleyan Church in Salisbury. Viewing is from 11 to 1 p.m., and with the service following. Due to a scheduling conflict, we will be hearing first from Dr. Tim Stock and City Attorney Ashley Boucher. I will entertain a motion to amend the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Hi.
You take lead.
Sure. Thank you for having us. I'm the chairperson of the Ethics Commission for the city. We serve at the pleasure of the mayor and are looking to work in coordination with City Council. Just very briefly before I get to the Code of Ethics, that is the reason that we're here today, I just wanted to kind of briefly remind everybody what the purpose of the Ethics Commission is. So we meet on an as-needed basis, and we serve in an advisory capacity. We give out primarily advisory opinions on city matters. Our purpose is to provide independent review of such requests. In the case of advisory opinions, our review is not binding, and it's really meant to contemplate both the legal requirements of a given situation, but also the likely judgments that city residents would reasonably make in reaction to the case. We also review ethics complaints, in which case we either dismiss a complaint for a lack of evidence, or and in that case, the complaint is not made public, or we investigate, and if we do investigate, our findings will be made public. So one advantage of working through the Ethics Commission for ethics concerns is that at the level of advisory opinions, it allows us to give a sort of good faith, honest read on a certain situation and can give timely feedback provided on city activities before anything would rise to the level of complaint. And so that's really what we look at as our primary resource that we're providing to you all. If there is a complaint, of course, the requirements for disclosure and things like that are much stricter, so there's a lot of advantage to working through advisory opinions for the bulk of matters that might be an issue of concern. And then in addition, it's part of our purview to engage in a review of financial disclosure documents for all city employees. So that's broadly what the Ethics Commission's purpose is. We have seen in the last year a significant uptick in requests for reviews, so we wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that fact. We've met 4 times in 2023, and then in 2024, we've already met 3 times, to give you some perspective in the level of uptick. So we have reviewed 4 requests for advisory opinions this year. We have issued decisions on 3 of them, and there's one currently in discussion, which is Advisory Opinion 2024-01. Advisory Opinion 2023-01 was presented by myself and Dr. Neil Carey at the June 5th, 2023 work session, and is slated to be included in the next draft of the City Employee Handbook. The Commission reviewed and ruled on 1 ethics complaint, and our finding in that case was that there wasn't sufficient evidence to investigate. The Commission currently has 4 members and 1 vacancy, but we do have 2 applications for that vacancy, so those applications are currently under review at the Mayor's office, and we look forward to working with our new colleague. So in addition to those activities, which are sort of our baseline activities, we had an additional task that was put on us, which is that the city asked us to review an ethics code and entertain the notion of what it would look like if we had an ethics code for the city. And that's what we've been asked to address to you all today. So I just first wanted to talk about our process. So how is it that we generated this code? We were actually provided with 2 competing draft ethics codes that were prepared last year by city interns. So those interns were Nana Boaden and Alexis Cominos. So those 2 draft codes were really quite varying in their style. One was almost, what's it, as many as 20 pages. It was quite a substantial document. And then the other one was much more concise. Our feeling on the commission was that the purpose of a code like this is primarily communication and consistency. And so the ideal outcome would be to have a very, very restricted code that stated everything in terms of matters of principle, of what we see as the varying competing ethical norms that city conduct is conducted under. So once we received these 2 drafts, we went through a process where we tried to harmonize the content, and so we did that over email with commission members. We also compared it to the employee handbook and also the city code to make sure that there was consistency. And at that point, we had really focused in on just cutting down to only the essential language, which is what we're left with today, which is a 2-page draft. I would say that just a couple things as you contemplate this. This is a draft also, so just to make clear that this is something for us all to have as a talking point. But a few things, these are not like judicial findings or legally binding determinations in any way. What they are meant to be is statements of principle that are intended to act as guides for conduct, decision-making, and processes among city employees and stakeholders. Ethics does require some degree of judgment and determination. So our commission's work is aimed at exhausting the range of grounds on which such judgments may be made by stakeholders and members of the public when concerning city activities. And our goal there is really to be sort of comprehensive in trying to contemplate all of the possible valid grounds that people could use to think about ethics in the context of our public work. It's also important to acknowledge that public ethics would not exist if it weren't for the fact that there are substantial disagreements about what ethical priorities we should have, how we should adjudicate given cases, and so it's certainly not the case that an ethics code would obviate or solve all ethics problems. It's simply to provide a shared framework that we can all agree on what we think is important when resolving ethical matters. And for the purposes of city employees and stakeholders, the primary advantage is that in advance, it provides opportunities to avoid misunderstanding, opportunities to avoid inconsistency if we have various documents that maybe don't articulate ethical norms in the same way. And then ultimately the purpose is transparency with the public so that the public is understanding how it is that city officials are making decisions. So revisions may still be required, and even after this code of ethics would be approved, it would then have to be harmonized, so there would need to be updates to the city handbook to reflect some of the language here. So again, just to remind everyone, the goal of these activities is really to look for consistency. One advantage is that if you had a nice short 2-page statement of ethical principles, it would facilitate onboarding, so just being able to show new employees, new stakeholders, what the consensus document is, and then also communication with the public so that we can be clear about what it is that we consider important. And then finally, just before we turn to the code itself, we just wanted to make sure in advance that you knew that we did have one additional recommendation based on the reviews that we're getting in terms of advisory opinions that we've been issuing. We do think that a substantial number of them relate to just some ambiguity in the way that dual employment is handled. And so we would need to maybe have a broader conversation about who is in charge of monitoring dual employment, what are the processes for reporting dual employment, what are the norms that we would adjudicate where a given case of dual employment is acceptable or not acceptable, because what we found is that in some cases it's sort of obviously no problem whatsoever, in other cases maybe it raises more concerns. So one thing though that's become clear in the process of reviewing these various advisory opinions is that we don't really have clear processes or standards for how dual employment is even reported. And so that's something that we would just think the City Council should take under advisement and as a matter of concern to avoid, the need for lots and lots of advisory opinions on given cases. So that's really all that I wanted to present to you today. So we're available if you have any questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that overview and that deep dive into the ethics.
We'll go as deep as you want.
Yeah.
Tim, just to clarify,
I was going to ask if you had any comments or questions, but you kind of beat me to the punch. Any comments or questions?
Mr. President, I do have one
Thank you.
question.
Yeah.
Tim, you mentioned about the dual employment piece. So the recommendation is for us to think about that more further and to come up with a policy that then would be adopted or just put into like a handbook, or we would just kind of have a rule of thumb?
I think it can be a policy, which administration would pass, or we could revise the handbook. And if we revise the handbook, then historically it comes to council for approval.
Okay.
But it needs, I think, needs to be a written document somewhere.
And just for clarification, that is also something that's being discussed in the bargaining, with the bargaining units right now, is
I presume.
what is the
Yeah.
ability for a secondary employment, what are the parameters around that? So that's something that's being negotiated or bargained.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would add to that comment, I think it's, I would leave it up to you in terms of what is going to work, especially across different units, but I think the baseline of what we would think is valuable is the ability to know how dual employment is reported in the first place, so whose obligation it is, who it is that reviews that report, and then what transparency looks like in terms of, who does that report go to, is it public or not public? So those are maybe the baseline that we might want to look for. We're not really into the substance necessarily of what such a policy would look like, but we're happy to advise if there are concrete proposals that either through bargaining or administration people are looking at.
Yeah, has the Ethics Committee ever found someone guilty of an ethical violation?
Well, I want to be really careful because we have two roles. So one of them is quasi-judicial, which means we actually investigate and have a finding. In that case, no, we have not found any violations that warrant further investigation. In the advisory opinions that we have had, there are certainly issues that we've discussed. I also want to make clear that we are a commission that functions as a deliberative body, and so in certain cases we have consensus on what the ethical issues are. In other cases we might not have consensus, and that will be reflected in the advisory opinion itself. But no, there's been no finding of any.
Has your primary interest been among administrative board members, or has it been employees? Both?
Well, both, really.
Both,
Yeah.
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 And a lot dealing with boards and commissions as well.
I'm just looking around the room at some of these people. I'm thinking it's just a matter of time.
Mercy.
Your commission then takes some of the subjectivity out of this when something is reported. I'm reading it, and it's. I would have it even more concise than it is.
Mhm.
And from what you both have just shared, 2 pages is a gift.
Yeah.
For what all the work that's gone into this.
Yeah.
But it's still rather subjective, and I'm wondering if that just doesn't come with the territory. I'm not familiar
Right.
enough with creating something like this to know that answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a really great point. So first off, the goal is to make it more objective as the process goes on. That's kind of why I wanted to make sure I presented the process that we've gone through so far. So this is material that's been sourced from city documents already. It's gone through multiple stages of review. And at the same time, I just would want to make sure everyone was clear, subjective judgments about right and wrong are relevant for public work. And so they can't be totally eliminated or avoided. I think that the best process is to try to collect as much good judgment as possible. That is, so people who, again, in good faith effort are trying to give their best reaction to a given case or a given set of standards. And, but I do think it's worth acknowledging that people will make subjective judgments about city conduct all the time. And so I wouldn't want to think that there's a policy or a process out there that's perfectly objective. I'd also I think that raises the really important issue that ethics and the law stand in a very specific relationship. And so ethical contemplation doesn't have to relate to legal matters in order to be valid. It can be more reflective, it can be more discursive, it can just be to find out what opinions people actually have on a given issue. But I wouldn't want people to have the impression that just because we're having an ethical conversation, that automatically has some sort of legal consequences, or, occasionally the law will trigger an ethics investigation. And so there are legal realities that govern it, but it doesn't work the other way.
Right, and so just from my standpoint, a legal standpoint, the binding document would be our ethics code, which is in our code. That will address what are actually prohibited activities, right? So that is the document that will say what's prohibited, what's not. This is more, I would say, kind of like Tim has spoken about, kind of like what I consider guideposts.
Okay.
And I think the other critical piece of it is our code applies to elected officials, city officials, employees, and only certain members of boards and commissions. So we are silent as to certain committees, task force, and other things. So we think this is important that they would be subject to this particular code, because at this point, they're not, there's a lot of, we have quite a few commissions that are appointed by the mayor, and they wouldn't be they would still be subject to the code, but they're not specifically enumerated in the code. So I think this helps close a gap as well.
And if I could sort of just make the point that I find it helpful to use the analogy that statements of ethical principles and values are in a way sort of like the stars that we might navigate by. They're not things that we think that we can actually get to, but by looking at clear statements of principles, it allows us to navigate various waters when it comes to this or that case.
Sure. Thank you. I do want to acknowledge that we do have 2 council members joining us via Zoom. I want to make sure we have no comments or questions from you 2 council members.
No, just appreciate the work of the commission.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. All right, any public comment? Okay, did you, okay. Oh, if you want to,
Concerns that channel number 2, former Attorney General Brian Frosch. Eric.
Hi.
Republican City Hall.
Okay, this is Lynn Bratton. I'm listening to Annapolis right now at home. I just want to say thank you for working on it. It needs to be done. I agree that 2 pages is still lengthy, and I think it should be more concise. I feel that some of the language is very easily misinterpreted, and I'm concerned also as a member of past boards and current on a board about the line concerning personal and organizational decision responsibility. That I don't know quite what that means. If a decision of the board is not what the person presenting their case wants, does that mean that the people on the board are then liable for making those decisions with their best intentions? So I think that shorter, more concise, more objective language. It's very flowery, and I'd like to see it shorter. I think we can do it in a page or less. Thank you.
thank you.
Baltimore City.
Bye.
Just to make sure we're all on the same page, if you do have a comment, please either raise your hand via Zoom or type
in their car and post all those properties.
Either raise your hand, type a note in the comments, and make sure that we address you formally. I do see we have a couple comments from the public. I believe Ms. Siggers raised her hand. If you want to go to the podium. You can go to the podium first, and then we'll, thank you.
Good evening, Von Siggers, Fitzwater Street. I would just like to say that for those committees or commissions that are not necessarily enumerated in there, perhaps they should be included so it's inclusive, that no one feels that they have some exception. Because I'm thinking that if it's in black and white, if it's in print, it is more accountable, that you're going to be held more accountable. I would hate for people to have to make decisions affecting other people's lives and not feel that they're as accountable as everybody else is.
Thank you. Lisa Gingrich.
Yeah, Lisa Gingrich, 316 North Division Street. I just have a comment about, I guess, order, that there's 11 items on this. Well, first of all, I agree with comments about more concise, a little bit less flowery, that kind of a thing. But one thing that I do notice is that out of 14 items here, number 11 is community engagement. I don't know if that's exactly an ethics comment or whether it's in some other realm, but I find it disturbing that community engagement is that far down in the list of things that you're going to be caring about and trying to do the right thing by. And it's, and otherwise, sure, understand, address the needs, all that kind of thing. But I would suggest that you do a better outreach on that than the comprehensive plan that was just presented last month, because that was a self-selecting audience of people, how they got the message that the meeting was taking place, and just the whole way it was being done, that there's huge percentage of the city that probably never even knew that meeting was taking place on something that important, and that supposedly was soliciting community input on how the city's going to do their next 10-year comprehensive plan. So I just wish that community engagement was higher on everybody's list, meaningful community engagement, as opposed to just saying, okay, we're going to have X number of people come to the firehouse, and then we're going to go off on that and assume that that means that's community engagement. It needs to be a more comprehensive, even if it's not as easy as putting a QR code somewhere. It's got to be more meaningful, actually getting the people that will never even know what a QR code is or otherwise wouldn't hear about it. So.
Thank you. Seeing no other comments, we appreciate you all's time and look forward to the continued work. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yes. At this time, we'll hear from the Arts, Business, and Culture Department Director, Alan Swigger, on budget amendment to appropriate funds to the Salisbury Zoo.
Hello.
Mr. Swigger.
How we doing?
Good.
Good. So yeah, I'm here today just to kind of fill you in on the status of the zoo and also request some additional funding to go back into our operating accounts. Mid-December into January, we quite literally had the perfect storm at the zoo. Flooding, 3/4 of the zoo was underwater all the way up to the education building. Simultaneously, we had a 35-year-old roof finally fail. So they did it right at the beginning. But we had to, pull our cards together and get that fixed. But as we went through the process of getting these repairs done, pretty much everything that we needed to happen didn't happen. Everything failed. So on the sheet, there's a breakdown of, just a summary of everything that you kind of see here that did happen at the zoo. I didn't want to hide anything, so all the invoices are attached. You can really dive into it at your leisure. But in general, the biggest thing that kind of hit first was our geothermal unit at the animal hospital went down. If that happens, that is the location that the animals go to. If the exhibit fails, they go there. Well, that failed too. So we entered an emergency procurement stance, and about 5 days racked up about a $50,000 bill just to get this up and running again. A lot of wiring, circuits, stuff wasn't up to code anymore, so we had to go through and get those repaired, and simultaneously getting the heating and air back up for the Sloth Flamingo and the Morgan Center. And then just a lot of miscellaneous supplies of emergency propanes. We were burning through it pretty quick to keep it all running, keep our animals safe. We were blessed though. Bayside Exteriors did come in and came with a shingle donation, so it saved us a significant amount of money on the roof replacement. And but ultimately what it did is it pretty much exhausted our entire buildings account. This buildings account is used to maintain the exhibits throughout the year. It averages around $3,500 of expenses just to keep the zoo stuff running. At the time when I drafted this, we were at $750 left in that account. It's gone now. We start the year with $39,000. It's all wiped up. So we started pulling money from other accounts, that lands and grounds and facilities and different things to keep the zoo running. So we're running at a deficit, and we're basically out of funds to be able to maintain our exhibits throughout the rest of the year without impacting other operations of the zoo. So I'm here just requesting $50,000 to come back into our buildings account at the zoo.
Thank you. What questions do we have from council?
Add a couple other comments to that. We have been tracking this as an administration. It is part of the CIP request. We are even looking at some bond reallocations. It was part of the proposal, but these emergencies hit, so needing the money now rather than waiting until July 1, or even a bond reallocation budget amendment. So we've been tracking it. It's just some things failed a little bit faster than we were hoping. So it's full support of us.
Sure. Yes.
I don't know what we'd do without the zoo, and I thank you for all the work you all do. It's amazing.
Thank you, appreciate that.
That was actually one of my questions is, are we taking a deeper dive and a look into the future of the zoo? I know this kind of took us by, well, surprise, but, if you,
Yeah,
things
I mean,
do age,
look,
but, so.
you got some good news,
Yeah.
it's the 70th year of this zoo.
It is, yeah.
It's this year. We're gonna have a gala on June 8th, so mark your calendars. But yeah, it's a failing infrastructure. It's been in that place for a long time.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of Band-Aids on it, which resulted in the loss of accreditation. So we have a 5-year plan. Funding expedites it, so we could get it done in 3, physically, but we stretch it to 5 just to
Sure.
not have such a blow at one time. But yeah, there's a 5-year master plan. We work with the AZA Pathways program. Our rep actually just retired and moved to Salisbury, so he's kind of readily available for us to help us.
Good.
But everything that we did in these repairs were to the standard of AZA accreditation.
Okay.
So we didn't put a Band-Aid on it for it to fail again in 3 more months. So we're up and running in these facilities to check that box off. But
Yeah.
like Andy alluded to, it gets us a little ahead of the funding
Sure.
that we're going to need.
I
in
did
the
see
long
on
run.
there, I saw the flamingo, I don't know why they caught but and the flamingos catch people's eyes, so I know people will be excited that the
Yeah.
flamingos are being protected pretty
They're all
well.
good. Hey, they're on our wall, right?
Yes,
So
they are, exactly.
They're a
Yeah,
staple
so
of the zoo, for
Keep
sure.
those bright, vibrant animals protected.
Yep.
Councilwoman Blake, you had a...
No, I just absolutely love the zoo, and I will be at the gala on the 8th of June.
Yeah.
Is that going to be right in the zoo?
Frighten the zoo?
Are we going to be partying in the zoo?
Yeah, we're going to party. No, they're fine. It's after hours, so it's going to go from 5 to 9. Animals are put away in cab. Actually, the nice thing is you'll be able to see some of the nocturnal animals at that time that you
Nice.
usually don't get to see.
Well, that'll be nice. And
More incentive to get a ticket for the community.
It's a lot of maintenance. It's a lot of stuff to keep on top of.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a beautiful zoo. We're very proud of it, and thank you so much for everything you do.
Good.
And I do appreciate the fact that you did include all the
Yes.
receipts and did a ticker tape with
Yep.
that. That was very nice. Thank you.
Absolutely, thank you.
Councilwoman Gregory and Jackson, any comments or questions? Oh, we can't, hold on, Councilwoman Gregory, we can't hear you.
That's weird.
There we go,
Okay.
now we're good.
Can you hear me now? Okay,
Yes.
good. No, I just, I want to thank Alan for getting the work done in a timely manner that protects the animals and makes sure that we're taking care of the zoo. And for bringing all the receipts.
Hello. I heard Alan say we have a 5-year plan for the zoo.
For the accreditation.
We do. It's for AZA accreditation to get reaccredited into the standard that is required to basically maintain our animal population. It is a 5-year plan. It's a working document, so some of the stuff gets checked off as we fix it. As I alluded to, we're not going to put Band-Aids on these things. We're going to get them right for the long haul.
Okay, so do we also have, you have that 5-year plan and no one knows what's going to happen, and you do know that it floods in the park and in that zoo area. So do we have any plans for anything or any funds put aside for that, or are we going to, or are you going to ask for that in the budget?
April, this is Andy. The flooding is a more complicated scenario. Most of the funding that we are looking at in the 5-year plan is for exhibit upgrades and facility improvements. Getting out of the floodplain is not possible. We did get I see Rick in the audience. I don't know if you remember, there was a study done on trying to relocate and do some things in the alpaca exhibit. It was several $100,000 to just fix that problem, but it's no surprise to anybody that the zoo is in a floodplain. So 100-year storms or worse flood the zoo on a continual basis. So that is a bigger conversation that at some point would probably want to be had on just sustainability of the zoo and its current location. But
But what?
But that would take a lot of time to talk through it, and that is a longer, bigger conversation on having a zoo in a floodplain.
What I was simply was saying, would we, okay, because of the floodplain, would we budget money in case something does happen? Again, to call some of the, because it's weather, when it comes to the zoo has been weather beating, as a house is or anything else. So do we have revenue set aside for that, is what I'm asking? Or are we going to do it in the budget? I'm not saying that I know that's the flood area, believe me, I know that. But what I'm saying is, are we going to be equipped for that if it happens again and again and again? So am I asking, are we putting money aside, not just the 5-year plan, but plans for any catastrophe in that zoo?
We are not tracking a large-scale catastrophe. I can talk with Alan and the zoo director, Chuck, afterwards. I think we are tracking more immediate needs within facility upgrades and enclosure improvements. Every time we do an improvement, we take into consideration the impacts it will have over the next several years within storm resilience and just flood mitigation. But specifically to your question, are we addressing impacts of continued flooding down there and the further erosion of the beach or exhibits? We're not tracking that to that level of specificity, but we can start to look at that a little bit more.
Okay, that's all it is. Thank you.
Ms. Jackson, just to weigh in on that, the water coming into the zoo is not a new problem, right? So these exhibits, when we build them, they're built with the animal in mind and their safety. So things are elevated in the areas that need to be elevated. If you were to go look at the alpacas where they were last year and where they've been moved, they're on a mound with a nice new building to keep them safe. So all of that's taken into account. But yeah, I mean, it's undeniable. It's a floodplain. So it's going to happen once in a while. But we've been lucky that it's not that common yet.
On an annual basis, how many days do you think we lose of operation because of the flooding on an average year? 3 to 5?
4 days, maybe. Once everything subsides, it's about clearing the pathways and making sure it's safe for folks. But it's not common that it happens to the extent that we have to close the facility.
And so we do have a public comment from Ms. Gingrich. And while Ms. Gingrich is moving to the podium, remind everyone to make sure that you are speaking into the microphone for, one, for our purposes here, but also for the recording as well.
Hi, Lisa Gingrich again, 316 North Division. Just basically, I've talked with some folks that I know, and most people don't ever speak up. I just wanted to make sure that there was some feeling about this. Everything everyone's talked about here, the fact that it's in a flood zone, the fact that these are long-going problems. This is another example of what a bunch of us have been saying for some time now, is that the City Council needs to pay attention to municipal management. That is why we're here. Number one is municipal management. There shouldn't be a question of, is there going to be money for the zoo? There shouldn't be a question, are we kicking the can down the road again? This should all be taken care of. Things like a recycling truck that needs a new starter, but there's no money in the budget for a new starter. That's fleet management. That should be taken care of. Things like the zoo should be taken care of. And it's appalling to us to find out that something like this could happen, because the things that are in the invoices that you very nicely included, they're not emergency things. These are emergencies caused by deferred maintenance. These are emergencies caused by lack of municipal management. This is not, oh, gee whiz, we had a once in a 200-year storm and a tornado ripped the roof off. This is something that shouldn't even be a question. It should just be, it's taken care of. Bringing things up to code, adding in split units, doing this, that, and the other thing. It's just absolutely appalling that this needed to happen. And thank you for making sure it happened. And again, talking for several friends that I've talked to about this, and nothing we haven't talked about here already, but just as a taxpayer and a person, just appalling.
Mr. Strieger, again, we appreciate your insight. Again, thank you for the attention to detail that you brought to this, and we look forward to make sure those animals are safe and that the public who thoroughly enjoys the zoo, that we keep it around for another, would you say 70 years. So I appreciate that so much. Thank you.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
All right, this time we'll hear from Fire Chief Rob Frampton on a 2023 statistical update.
Did you call for a vote on that? Move that
Did you,
forward?
did you have consensus?
I'm sorry. Council, we have consensus to move that forward to next week's meeting?
Yes,
Yes. Second.
Yes.
yes.
I can't see members on the Zoom, so could I get one more?
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Appreciate you all. I was so excited to hear about the fire department.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Thank you.
In the spirit of transparency, we're going to start having quarterly updates in regards to the fire department and some of our statistics. So we thought it'd be appropriate that we start with an end-of-year wrap-up for 2023. So I'm going to take about 10 minutes of your time, not too much, so you can get to your basketball game, and talk about what the fire department did in 2023, and then we'll come back to see you guys again in April or so. So just a little bit about the fire department. We currently operate with 102 FTEs, that's operations and administrative personnel combined. We do operate out of 3 stations on a 24/7, 365 basis. And that staffing matrix is made up of 2 engines with a minimum staffing of 3 people on the engines, and 1 ladder truck with a minimum staffing of 4. Those are national standards. We do staff 4 ambulances. 3 of those are advanced life support, meaning there's a paramedic and an EMT on those units, and 1 basic life support, which is 2 EMTs. And then there's an assistant chief who is in charge of the 24/7 operations, major incident operations, incident command, things like that. So at a minimum, we have 19 people on duty at all times. A few of the additional services that the fire department does provide Monday through Friday from 7 to 5. Let me move this forward. Need a partner here. Monday through Friday, 7 to 5, and on call. So nights and weekends, we do have our fire marshal's office, which is something we stood up about 6 years ago or so. They conduct inspections, code enforcement, plan reviews, investigations. They're doing investigations for causal factors, not criminal. So we still employ the state fire marshal for criminal actions, but they're looking for more trends of cooking fires or juvenile setting fires, things like that, so that we can address and target our community outreach and information programs to them. In addition to that, we have our SWIFT, our mobile, and MDCN, which are MIH, our mobile integrated health program, and that's a joint venture between the fire department, Tidal Health, and the Wycomico County Health Department. The 2 pieces of that, like I said, are SWIFT and MDCN. SWIFT has more of appointment-based visits, and they try to attack the repeat users of 911. They address in-home hazards and such. That's 1 paramedic and 1 nurse practitioner Monday through Friday. The MDCN, they respond to the low acuity 911 calls. They're providing meds, treatments, but they don't transport. So if somebody falls in their home, simply needs stitches, we have the ability to suture them up, save them a trip to the hospital, and also save the Tidal Health some medical expenses as well as their insurance. So those programs fall under what you're going to be hearing about us talk about moving forward is our community risk reduction section, which falls under the administrative services. So a little bit of the basics. These are what people usually ask us. How many calls do we run year to year? So we're going to look at the year-to-year comparison between 2022 and 2023. You can see that total calls were up just over 1%, or 183 calls. Fire calls were actually down 2.7. We'll dig into a little bit deeper here in the next couple of slides as to why that was. And then EMS calls, no surprise there, were up 2.5% year over year. The total fire responses is the unit responses. So if we have a fire, you may get 3 city units, three city fire units. So I think it's something important to be noted that last year in 2023, we had 6,730 actual fire unit responses, which is average 18 fire unit responses a day. So that's that's 1 engine, 1 truck. That would be 2 unit responses. So you can't really just go by fire calls being 4,232. It's actually units on the street. If you break down the 16,
Rob,
yes.
real quick,
Sure.
I don't know if you can hit it, but what defines when what unit goes?
Okay.
real quick, maybe high level?
Yeah, so basically the 911 dispatch center is controlled by the county. They take the call. So if it's an automatic alarm in a residence, we may send just an engine or just a ladder truck. If it's a little bit higher occupancy, say a commercial building or an apartment building, we'll send an engine and a truck for an automatic alarm. Structure fires get all three station responses, so 2 engines, a truck, plus outside units as well. So, and when I say outside units, I mean from Hebron, Del Mar, Parsonsburg, Fruitland.
No, I don't mean to interrupt here.
Sure.
But when a structure fire occurs and you have all 3 trucks, is that 1 call or 3 calls?
That's 1 call, but that would be 3 unit responses.
So that's what that number is?
Yeah, yes. So the calls would be your 4,232, 1 call for the structure fire, 3 unit responses would be your 6,000 number down there.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The 16,314 calls in a year equals to 1 call every 32 minutes. So just picture that. Our average call length is usually about an hour, hour and 5 minutes turnaround time. So for people who maybe like myself and do a little bit better with visual stuff, here's a chart that shows the slight uptick in EMS, the slight downtick in total fire, and then overall is just slightly higher. So we'll dig a little bit deeper. Some terms you're going to see us moving forward with is what we're going to refer to as our incorporated district, our unincorporated district, and then outside of the Salisbury Fire District. So that's basically talking to what we used to refer to as in the city limits, outside of the city limits, or in the county of our fire district, and then completely outside of our fire district would be your Fruitland, Hebron, Parsonsburg, Del Mar, as well as outside of the county. We've gone to Deal Island recently. We go to Princess Anne, Somerset often for EMS calls. So this breaks down those numbers a little bit further so you can see where the actual gain and the increase is. So I would draw your eyes to the EMS calls outside of our district being up 24%. Those are calls where we run to Parsonsburg, Somerset, Fruitland, Allen, things like that. Those calls are up 24% from 2022 to 2023. Their volunteerism across the nation is down, and also, adequate staffing in some of those places. They only staff 1 EMS unit. Their calls are going up, so when their EMS unit goes on a call, we end up having to respond out to cover their second call in their district. The fire call decrease in the incorporated district, that number looks big, down 6.67, but I will say that is a true testament to the work of the city fire marshal's office. So they follow up with code violations, they follow up with complaints, they follow up with repeat offenders who have bad fire alarm systems that need repair. So through their work, their efforts, safer buildings, that's why you see that call number going down in the city limits. Because if you look at fire calls in the county where we don't have fire marshal jurisdiction, they're up 9.4%. So it shows you the significant impact that the fire marshal's office is having on calls within our fire district that we have the ability to control. And then the last number down there is the fire calls outside of our fire district. They're up 87%. Again, volunteerism is down nationwide, and then also there are some response changes that have been made on a county level where the county fire chiefs are asking for more units to respond to calls so that we get more help there, and it's pulling us out of our district. You're going to see that number continue to grow up. Continue to go up. There's some changes that have been made since 2023 that are going to start requiring 2 fire units on all high-speed highways. So 13, 50, we do it in our fire district already, but you're going to see our fire units going all the way up into Del Mar to Foskey Road. You're going to see them going out on 50, to White Low Road out in Hebron's fire district, and those things are being passed on to us from the county. So those are response changes that are going to continue to drive that number up because they want help and they need more people on incident scenes.
Can you send this to council?
I can email you this tomorrow.
I was just getting ready to say, I'm going to email it to everybody after the
great.
meeting.
So just remember those terms, the incorporated district, unincorporated district, and then outside of our fire district, you're going to see that as a way for us to differentiate that moving forward. Some more charts, maybe a little difficult for people to see in the back, but EMS call year over year in the top and fire calls year over year in the bottom there. One of the questions we get sometimes is our EMS billing. So we broke down some of our EMS billing. Unfortunately, I only have May to December stats, and that's because our billing company was consumed by another one. And we are having a difficult time accessing the January to May billing statistics. But we pulled May to December, and you can see there the gross charges and then actually what was collected. We annualized that out. And you can see our average gross trip is $1,110, but we really only collect about $300 to $400 of that, and that's through write-downs, through insurance payers and Medicare, Medicaid, things like that. I was recently told as early as this morning that the SWIFT MDCN, the non-transport billing thing is in process and is actually up. They have issued $5,000 in bills. We'll see how much of that we recoup, but that's a program that's been ongoing in a process that we've tried to get in place for a couple months now, and they finally were able to do that. So we'll see what that does. The S money up there was EMS supplemental payment plan. That was an extra $900,000 that we had to do behind the scenes. Actually, Assistant Chief Chris Truitt did a lot of work on that to get that money back over last year. Some of the things we couldn't do, outside fire departments came in to assist the fire department 86 times last year. Some of those are on mutual aid structure alarms. We have the same response where they come in to help us as we go to help them. But then some of those calls were where we were just too busy to handle them, and they had to handle the call entirely of themselves. Outside EMS units, those call numbers are down significantly, even though 124 might seem like a lot. But since we've had the fourth run EMS unit up, those numbers have gone down, which has allowed the city not only to handle calls faster, which decreases the length of time it takes somebody to get there, and it decreases the dollar loss from fires, but it also allows us to recoup some of that revenue. So just based on the $1,110 gross bill rate, the 124 calls potentially lost was $137,000, but we know that it's probably about a third of that money. So, yeah, sure.
Question, Chief. When you said that if you're too busy to make a call and another fire department comes in, does that impact your finances in any way? Because I know you
we do not bill. So we'll just say Fruitland, for instance, comes in and handles a call and they transport. We don't bill for that. Fruitland bills for that and collects whatever they collect. Okay. We get nothing.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep. A little bit more about EMS and the superior EMS system that we have here in Salisbury. Witnessed cardiac arrests are people who went into cardiac arrest with somebody right there, whether it was medically trained staff or layperson. So there were 44 of those in 2023, and then unwitnessed there was 69. Of that 113 people, we were able to resuscitate 33, which is 29%, almost 4 times the national average. So note to self, if you have a cardiac arrest, if you decide to go into cardiac arrest, do it in Salisbury's fire district. You've got about a third a chance of being safe. Yeah, of being safe. Whereas other places are 8%.
I think we should put that on our website.
It's definitely something that we're very proud of.
Thanks for reminding us.
Another testament to the fire marshal's office is the civilian fire deaths and civilian fire injuries. So last year we had 0 civilian fire deaths, and we only had 1 reported civilian fire injury. A little bit more about the SWIFT and the MDCN. So SWIFT currently has 35 patients that they visit weekly, so that's about 7 patients a day, Monday through Friday, that they're visiting routinely. Sometimes they take them to a dialysis appointment or a doctor's appointment, or it may just be making sure they have their meds, they're taking their meds and those kind of things. The MDCN number there, the 386 calls, is something that we just stood up in July, and we've treated 108 people on scene, and we've prevented them from having to be transported, which Tidal Health has seen that savings of a $218,000 reduction in billed medical expenses.
I was going to say, how does that get saved by the hospital? They don't have to...
They don't have to clog up their emergency room. Yeah. They can't bill for certain things if people are readmitted. Within a certain time frame.
Oh, right.
So they're unable to bill for that. So our SWIFT team has been tracking all of that. I can certainly send the dashboard to you that's updated every day that they dump their data in. So that number continually gets updated. But when I pulled this, it was $218,000 in 6 months. Next quarter, I'll have some interesting information about some of the work that they're doing for our own employees, but we'll save that for next month. So a little bit of fun here. I pulled some of the numbers. One of the metrics we track is property we saved from fire. So there's a building catches on fire, and we tend to track property loss, but we've tracked property saved for years now. In 2023, we saved $380 million in property from fire. So if you had no fire department, no response, things caught on fire, they just burned, it'd be $380 million in damage. Our end results on the next slide, it was $1.4 million.
What do you just include the improvements above ground, or do you include light fix, like if anything else happens?
Yeah, so it's just the improvements above ground. Okay. I'm actually have an email out, and we're going to work on the true economic impact of that. Yeah, that so lost wages, medical costs, whether or not people are forced to move out of their home, move out of the area, so they stop paying taxes, they stop going to restaurants, or a business may have to shut down for 3 months or 6 months, so that's lost, income for the business and so on. So we're going to start tracking that. That would be interesting. There's a lot of moving parts in that, so we're working actually with SU to get some of that information. That's above my, out of my lane to get some of that. I can give you the data, but we'll figure it out. Okay. Fire unit response times are under 4 minutes on average, which exceeds the national standard. And then a little bit of work from the fire marshal's office. Last year, 105 building plans that were approved. They definitely reviewed more than that. Some were denied, some were withdrawn, things like that. And then sprinkler system inspections they did last year was 384, and they generated approximately $300,000 in revenue for the city through their fines, through their permit fees, through their building plan reviews and inspections. And then the thousands of children and adults that we impact annually through programs such as Blazing a Trail, Fire Prevention Month, Third Fridays, and such. You probably see that all over our social media if you follow that. Some of the bad things, some things we can control, some things we can't. There were 176 opioid-related calls in 2023. I mentioned the $1.4 million in property loss from fire. Our total employee sick hours was 4,128, and FMLA leave was 3,379. Some of that's injuries, childbirth. Obviously, Brian was out some of that time with his battle with cancer, and then numerous surgeries. Our average EMS unit response time is good at 7 minutes and 25 seconds, but we want to try to do better with that. We want to try to, it meets the national standard, but we think we can do better with that.
And previously you mentioned about the 4 minute response time.
Yeah, so we have a lot better control over tracking our EMS unit response times. The 4 minute was fire units, and that's just from when they leave the fire station to getting on the call. There's a whole dispatch time that we don't control.
And I'm curious between the incorporated, unincorporated, and outside, but this, so that is a totality.
That was everything.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Yeah, I can send you the breakdown of incorporated, unincorporated times.
That would be interesting
it's
too.
It's on a spreadsheet back at
Yeah, that's fine.
But
it would certainly raise your time inside the incorporated area.
absolutely,
right? Okay.
absolutely, yep. So just having a little fun with those numbers, based on our $12 million budget, this doesn't account for the $3 million in revenue that we generate. Let me see, get ahead of myself here. I did. If you look at the property saving, talk about return on investment. I know this is a kind of a fun number to have fun with, but 3,171% annualized rate of return, or return on your investment, I mean. That's pretty significant. I'd like to make that investment every year. But what's not necessarily a funny thing is more of a, even though the top is true, but definitely a true statement, is that 29.2% cardiac arrest, save rate. So reality of the numbers, cost per capita based on only city residents is $363 a year. So for right around $1 a day is what our city residents are getting, that fire and EMS protection that I just described to you about. If you look at our entire fire district, including the incorporated and unincorporated areas, that takes it down further into $190.41. Now granted, the unincorporated is not paying city taxes, but we're working on funding mechanisms for them. So how do we compare to others? So City of Annapolis, very similar size department, similar population. Their budget far exceeds ours. Their cost per capita for the fire department, $638. Frederick County is a county-wide system, obviously, $343, so comparative to us. Prince George's County is less than us, but they also have a very strong volunteer component into their county-wide system that helps them bring that number down. And then Ocean City, obviously, with their, they're a little bit different staffing mechanism than us with their seasonal influence of their people. But based on their residential population, they're $1,598 is their cost per capita. Break it down a little bit further into 100,000 people, which we estimate is our transient Monday through Friday business population in the city. That's 46 cents per day per person for fire and EMS protection. And then if you look at it for every dollar, that $380 million number that I threw out there, it's 3 cents spent on the fire department makes $1 saved. So we're definitely making a significant impact. You should be proud of your fire department. And, you know, what can we draw from all this? Obviously, the fire department's busy, but you do have a first-class service. We are fiscally responsible, and our fire marshal's office makes a tremendous impact, as you could see in some of those numbers up there in life safety and first responder safety. The Ross is one of the safest buildings for firefighters that's probably exists in the country, and that's through the work of our fire marshal's office. EMS calls continue to increase. I don't know what we're going to do about that as the city continues to grow and annex property. They're going to continue to go up. We do have the SWIFT and MDCM, but they can't keep up with keeping some of the EMS calls down. And, you know, outside of our fire district, you know, calls continue to go up because volunteerism is down, and there's more and more requests for our specialized units and our personnel that's readily available.
Yeah.
So that's kind of all I have for the end of 2023 summary.
Yeah.
Unless you want any questions, I'll be glad to help. If I can,
Sure.
I'll email you answers.
I think the mayor has one.
Yeah, yeah. One of the reports I saw, there was a concentration around the nursing homes that they're repetitive users of the. What kind of a percentage on a monthly, weekly basis are they taking?
I don't have the percentage for you, but they're definitely, Salisbury is the hub for skilled nursing facilities is what they're referred to. In the county, we have a significant number of those, and they're definitely the higher user. I don't have the exact rate off the top of my head.
Are they fairly low threshold before they'll call and get transport to the hospital? Like,
Yeah, so
they don't have cardiac arrest. I mean, it's more.
I mean,
like temperature.
they do, but typically, yes, it's a lot of them are looking for. There may be abnormal blood work, or it may be somebody who fell out of bed and needs to be transported because while they're a skilled nursing facility, they may not have X-ray equipment, MRI equipment, things like that.
Do you see it statistically meaningful, and is there maybe a lower cost delivery system for that component?
So what we're looking at and what we've started doing is that MDCN component
Okay.
now has agreements with John B. Parsons and Salisbury Nursing Home, so 200 Civic Avenue and Lemon Hill Lane, so that we can actually start to send that unit there to do a further assessment to say, hey, we can you know, look at their blood work a little bit more in detail to see if they really require a 911 transport, or hey, they're good, or do they need to have this sort of drip
And
run? And
this
we'll
is your lower base support unit you're talking
Yes,
about? Okay.
yeah, that's a
Okay.
non-transport unit that goes there. In addition, there was some issues on the state level with billing and response to that protocol, so I just want to be open about our SWIFT program. It's probably outside of LA Fire Department, it's the second most progressive mobile integrated healthcare system in the country for what we do. There are no other departments that are doing what we're doing with regards to responding that to nursing homes and treating people in the street and, you know, making sure they're home safe.
Right. And there's no way to pass some of those costs onto the facility itself?
Not necessarily to the facility, it's going to go to the patient.
No, I know.
That's a
So you have to
relative.
build on an individual basis. You can't say, hey, guys, you're calling us 100 times a month.
Yeah, but we do meet with them routinely and review cases to say, hey, we're seeing a lot of these abnormal blood levels. Why are we doing that? Yes, we do have routine meetings with that.
So thinking about the SWIFT integrated, Tidal Health is a partner in that, financially contributing and staffing because it helps them on the back end. So maybe as we continue down that path, there's a partnership maybe with some nursing homes in some other capacity.
Okay.
Definitely.
I have one other thing that someone might not think this is the top of their list, but I have watched your firemen try to save animals.
Yeah.
And animals are a big part of families, and kudos to all of you that do that as well.
Sure. Thank you.
I just want, excuse me, President Downey. Big mouth, sorry. There should be no question at this point in juncture about our fire service agreement with the county. It's not an argument. It's not a question of what they need to be paying us. and I'm sure there's some type of update on that. And just the remarkable service. I work in a portable right there on Mount Herman Road, right by the Birth to Five at the old Board of Ed building. And so there's a student in there. I've got a couple students, but this one student is very aware of how often you guys come up and down the street. And he actually runs the numbers for me. He runs the time and how many trucks, he knows how many trucks.
Sure.
He knows what trucks they are, and it's amazing. He's an amazing guy. So you are quite busy, and we are very honored and very proud of our fire departments here in Salisbury. I just brag about it all the time. You're very professional. I've had family that the ambulances come picked up. I've been picked up a couple times for situations with health issues, heart issues. Stop it, Randy. But it is absolutely second to none. Our fire department is second to none, and I say that everywhere I go. And thank you for these presentations like
Sure.
this. Really help qualify.
Yes.
It's just about keeping people informed.
What you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sure.
And definitely, I echo some of the same sentiments, because again, now seeing this is it really speaks to the work. So I'm quite busy. I feel like I live in my car or somewhere else, but every time I'm in my car, I'm moving my vehicle, and in my vehicle, I see SFD, either one of our ambulance units, EMS units, or one of our actual engines. So that speaks to, again, you all are either leaving a call or going to a call. So I can see how busy you all are. And when we say 4 minutes, I mean, 4 minutes. If I'm having an emergency, 4 minutes is too long. So,
Yeah.
but that, speaking to that national average, is good. So I want us to get that number down, but that means we have to take care of see the work you all are doing and making sure that our residents see the work you're doing and taking care of that. So thank you for providing this to us. We look forward to getting the answers to some of those other questions that we have. And I want to make sure I'm being respectful of our other council members via Zoom if we had any other comments or concerns.
I do.
Okay.
I do. This is a substantial update. And Chief Frampton, I commend you and our chief of police. You have really been forthcoming to our communities and to our councils, and the work that you have done thus far is phenomenal. And this update is phenomenal, and I will make sure that people get this, because I would like to have a copy of this as well. And I would like to post it on Facebook so people can see what they do. And I see your work because I can look right out my window every day and see the fire trucks rolling. It look like sometimes on two wheels because they're just trying to get there. And I see you sometimes across the street from me numerous of times in one day. So I appreciate you and the lives that you save all over the city of Salisbury and Wycomico County and any other surrounding areas. I am proud of you, and I am proud for you to be a part of the city of Salisbury.
Thank you very much. We have a great team.
Thank you.
Well, there's not much else I can say other than, I get to have the experience, unluckily, occasionally, to have you guys come into my home. And every time the EMS folks are absolutely on the ball. They're so quick to come to my door. They are always very professional, very quick to jump into action. And it's gotten to the point where my son is on almost a first name basis with most of these folks. And, I always know that when we call you guys, he's going to be in good hands on the way to the hospital. And, I just have a real profound appreciation of everything that you guys do, and will always support whatever you guys need, no matter what.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Listen, I know that I did it, but I need to schedule another ride along. But this time, I want to be behind the wheel of the fire engine. So, whatever you can do to make that happen.
We'll see what we can do.
Thank you, Chief. We
All right.
appreciate it so
Thank you.
much. Yes. All right. This time we'll hear from Director Rick Baldwin for Critical area map update. And of course, Associate Planner Amanda Rodriguez. Welcome to you both.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
Good evening.
As always, it's nice to see you. But truly tonight, I'm just here to introduce my colleague. While you all may know Amanda well, or you may not, I thought I would say a few nice things that she's too modest to say about herself. This evening, she's going to be talking about the updates to the critical area map. Amanda does have experience with critical areas, with the time that she spent with the county. Recently, she's been editing and updating the city code for critical areas, which will be brought to you at a later date. And she also represents the city at statewide meetings for the Critical Area Commission.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for having me. So tonight I'm bringing before you the critical area map update. So for those of you that don't know what the critical area is, it's a 1,000-foot landward buffer from waters of the Chesapeake Bay that are marked for special protection by the state. Originally, the program began in the 1980s. When the program began, we were using the 1972 hand-drawn wetland maps to kind of delineate what the shorelines were. So in 2008, the state decided those needed to be updated, and they wanted to do it more accurately using GIS and aerial photography. So we've been working on that. It's finally been completed, and now it's being brought before you after being brought to Planning Commission for your review, approval, and adoption. Part of the process for us were to make the maps available to the public and notify any property owners that were facing a more than 1% change in their lot. What you can see up here is the yellow is the new mapped area of the critical area. Green indicates a gain where we may have not had it mapped correctly originally. Red indicates a loss where it was too mapped as wetland, but is in all actuality development.
Amanda, Rick, real quick, we do have new people. It's just the term critical area. That may still be foreign to some people at the table. So maybe high level, just what defines a critical area and what does that include?
Yep, so that critical area is that 1,000 feet landward from tidal wetlands, and it's just an area of special habitat and environmental protection. There's limited development within there. The city of Salisbury, there's multiple classifications. There's the resource conservation area, the limited development area, and the intensely developed area. The city of Salisbury's critical area is almost entirely intensely developed because it's all around our port. So most of it has already been developed or finished with hardened surfaces and been revetted.
Thanks.
I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have about the map update or any comments.
It's well done. It's well done. I love presentations like this. I love the map. I love the visual. And it's just so clear about like what's gained, what's lost, what's the same. The outline is very nice. Thank you.
So I don't have a question because this is my second time hearing this, but can you just explain really briefly that this was something brought on by the state and then they spent some extensive time on that, so when it got to us, there was no...
Right, yeah, we didn't have to do any work on this other than forwarding on for public hearing and review and approval by the Planning Commission and you guys. This was something that the state GIS team uses to gather all their resources.
Yep. Good.
And Amanda, just when you mentioned most of the critical areas in Salisbury because of where it's located are already developed or in different stages of development. If somebody is interested in doing a redevelopment or just a new construction within a critical area, there are processes or steps that have to take place, including I think our zoo sits within a critical area as we were talking about that earlier. But that is a whole nother process within a process if people are interested in doing work or development in that area. So maybe just high level, let people know how that interacts with you specifically or our department.
Yeah, so there are certain permits that you have to get, and then there's also mitigation you would have to do to offset any of the development that's happening within certain areas. Now, the intensely developed area, which again is mostly what we have, has limited on-site mitigation because most of the time, it's already intensely developed.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you'll pay a fee in lieu, or you'll do off-site mitigation in some type of bank.
Yeah. In my prior life, I built a house in Nisdale in a subdivision and got hit with, at that time, the largest fine for clearing the lot because I thought it was in an existing subdivision. It was in 1,000 feet of the buffer. It was like $800 in like 1994 or whatever it was. It was like, wow. But anyway, so it can be tricky. People don't understand it. You know, it can be tricky, and you do have to mitigate offsite, which is, that's what we had to do. Yeah.
Thank you. Well, seeing no other comments or concerns, we appreciate it, and we'll see you. Do we need to?
I think we need consensus.
We need to consensus to move this forward because you'll be okay.
Yes.
All right, do we have consensus from council to move this forward?
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, we'll see you again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, now we have a presentation of the Green SBY website by Sustainability Specialist Dylan Lakinich. Yeah, I usually just call you Dylan. Dylan, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I was told I would be getting a Zoom link. I'm just checking on that. I do not see that. Is there a way I can join directly via the website? Is there a Zoom
If
link
you can
there?
go to the Salisbury website and then go to
Salisbury.md.
the city council.
Okay, my apologies.
Oops, wait a minute. I got the wrong things.
I see.
Oh.
Okay. I'll be joining as Dylan Lakonich. Did you listen to that?
Yeah, I'll let you know.
Lakonich, got it. Yes, I heard it.
Yeah, no,
My
you can
ears
just,
hurt and then-
you can share
yeah.
your screen, you should be good to go.
Thank you.
Okay. There we are, and share screen. Okay, great. All right, City Council, Mayor, thank you very much for having me today. I just wanted to do a quick little presentation for you about Green SBY, our new sustainability GIS hub page. This is a comprehensive resource for all the different sustainability initiatives that are within the city. Most of these come out of the Department of Infrastructure and Development. There is some multi-departmental information, but most of it is DID. Essentially, all the information that we'll be seeing here will already be found on the Open Data Hub, our GIS portal. But there is some more information and opportunity for citizens to engage with our sustainability initiatives and learn more about how they can do their part to make ourselves a more sustainable city. So first and foremost, the URL is long at the very top, but this can be shortened to bit.ly/greensby. So that's how I'll be sharing it in the future. But anything you would like to find can be found in this little search bar here. So if I wanted to find a map about infrastructure, I can type that in. And then I can find the infrastructure map viewer. And then I'll pull the city of Salisbury, and then it's going to include things like impervious surface. If you go up here to the layer folder, you can turn on our stormwater network. We will be expanding this to include more delineated best management practices and things of the like. But this is how it is in its early conception. Going back to the hub, you can see up here we have all these different categories, sectors of sustainability. One thing that we just updated last night as the Meadows subcommittee with the Green Team is our little meadow guide. So it includes information as to how to register a meadow within the city of Salisbury. I'm sure you're aware, but you can register a pocket meadow in the city, and this allows people to vary from the ordinance that establishes different landscaping practices for private property. And so it includes, how to test your soil, exactly what it is. We include an FAQ. We include a chart about different species that are recommended for our coastal plain. We include a YouTube video, local resources, whether it be VUMD Ag, Lower Shore Land Trust. Of course, all these resources have been consulted with, and we do have their approval to have this on the website. And then a composting guide. Moving over to events, for example, you can see local organizations. This is all Lower Shore. It would be ACT, that's ASTI Coastal Trust, Maryland Coastal Bay Program, and different organizations can all be found right here. We can move over to water resources. We can see what's available to the citizenry or the residents of Salisbury, whether this be kayak launch points and the respective game that would be found in that local water body. So you can see here the Wacomico River. You can see that there's bluegill, blue cats, crappie, channel cats, all sorts of different things that are there. And if you go back up to this, what we call a hamburger, you can include different things like the wetlands in the area. You can see the subwatersheds, wellhead protection area, and even the paleo channel.
And Dylan, did you say bit.ly
Yes,
slash?
green, but with a capital G. I'm going to change this later. Green, SPY, SPY all caps. I'm going to make that all lower caps, or lowercase.
That does matter if you capitalize or not.
Yeah,
That's
I realized
interesting.
that after the fact.
Could we
It's easy
link
to
it
change.
with our website, with the SBY? Could we link it to,
We figure it out.
great, that'd be great.
Make it a little easier, just
Yes,
one stop.
because I can see, so one thing is the cleanups. So I've gotten
Yes.
a lot of different questions, and I know there's people in the community that do a lot of cleanups, but if we can simplify it and have it, right here, yeah, this is amazing, become a community, a green leader.
Mhm.
Yeah, this is, we should definitely, please add this to the website so we can easily show people how to beautify our city.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. We are very grateful for all our local stewards, especially Greg Founts.
Yes, that's exactly who I was thinking of.
Yes, here he is, the beautiful man. So we are happy to, champion, again, our local stewards and give them anything they need. We do have a subcommittee for cleanups with the green team, and they're very eager to get out there and like you said, make the city a cleaner place. We include different things, including energy. So this could be electric vehicle charging infrastructure. We actually have a map that shows people the amount of solar energy that can be produced from their rooftops. So if I were to click on this home here, I won't include their address. You can see the estimated annual electric production, so that'll be about 9 megawatts. We include information as to how many are consumed on average per household. There's more extensive information. I was talking earlier about giving people the ability to chime in. So you can provide a survey, you can fill it all out, and the survey results will actually pull it up here. So if you said, oh, I think that Shoemaker Pond is a little bit dirtier than usual, it would actually pop up right here and it would say that. You can request a free recycle bin. Those are the guides up here. You can become a green business through this certification link here, and you can also learn more about our municipal certifications right there as well. It's a lot. It's very extensive.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's comprehensive, so I wanted to just get through pretty much most of everything and show you the basic gist. But if you have any questions or if you'd like to request that I show you more specifically anything else here, I'm happy to do so.
Thank you. I think this is pretty good, and like I said, now that we know the correct website, and hopefully we get it linked up, so I think we'll, as council,
Yeah, I need a link.
look into it and then definitely spread the word. That's the most important thing. So I appreciate you giving that
Looks nice.
that deep dive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any questions or comments from council or admin?
No.
No? Okay. We do have a public comment from Lisa Gingrich. Welcome to the podium.
Hi, Lisa Gingrich, 316 North Division. Charles Dickens in 1836 wrote the Pickwick Papers. He had an old man character exclaiming exasperation, what now, what fresh misery is this? Please understand that I'm not against sustainability. I think it's fabulous to have in the city. I've been exposed to Salisbury my entire life with my grandmother, my cousins. Dorothy Parker, American writer, poet, satirist, and critic, was known for greeting every ringing of her doorbell with, "What fresh hell can this be?" This describes how many of us in this city, vocal and silent, greet each thing generated here in the City Council. If there'd been a marked change after the last election, maybe we'd have some hope. But we don't really see any change in the direction and the speed. And now it's official. What I handed to Julie was copies of an article where Salisbury has been named the most miserable city in the state of Maryland. There's a misery index. You can laugh at it all you want.
It is huge. There you go. That's huge.
You can laugh at it all you want. I'll make sure
And I
people
did.
understand that you think it's funny.
We'll need to turn the comments to the, make sure we're discussing.
Please.
This is on the heads of previous councils, which include 3 of the current members. Current member who's leading the charge in the same direction. We're lucky that we have a good group of people in this city that aren't doing destructive, counterproductive things. Just to let you all know, you're going to be losing the only bed and breakfast in Salisbury.
I'm sorry, Ms. Gingrich, does this pertain to the Green SPY presentation?
Yes,
I
it's
just wanna make
talking
sure.
about emphasis on this, and what I'm talking about is that instead of putting emphasis on something like this, we should be putting emphasis
Okay,
on
I
things
just want to make sure we're directing
that
our
make this
comments to
city-
the Green SPY website, the actual website, the presentation.
Instead of saying how pretty this city could be, maybe we should be talking about these other things. Losing bed and breakfast, being in articles like this,
It's nothing to do with the website.
people dreading hearing the newest thing you guys are going to be doing. And if you think that this is not-
Okay, Ms. Gingrich, I appreciate your comments, but thank you so much. If they're not
I was
pertaining
just
to the
ending by
website,
saying if you
Ms.
don't think
Gingrich,
this is
Ms.
pertinent-
Gingrich, if they're not pertaining to the website, we will have to move forward with the
All right, we'll
agenda.
do that.
Thank you so much.
And it was because I
Thank
was-
you so much, Ms. Gingrich. Thank you, Dylan, so much for your presentation. We look forward to the good work that the Green Team is doing and getting that linked up to the website.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Right, at this time, we'll hear from our Election Board President, Susan Carey, and City Attorney Ashley Boucher regarding the proposed ordinance and charter amendments associated with the elections. Good to see you, Ms. Boucher, again. And Board President Susan Carey, hello and welcome. Yes.
Yes, so if you'd like, I'll go ahead and take the lead, and then you can address any questions that you have.
Yes.
Okay, so with it being an election year last year, we were obviously very busy, this board was, and I think we're just as busy after the election, because what we decided to do was take a holistic look at what occurred, because we had a number of firsts, and I think we were pretty active, so what we did is try to take a look at how we can improve and anything that needed to be changed. So we're here specifically to talk about proposed charter amendments and code amendments. However, we are also looking at overhauling the campaign or candidate packet. We are drafting a policy on complaints in terms of how they're handled and received. We're also looking at just the rules and procedures governing the board, and we'll soon also be looking into reviewing the campaign finance disclosure forms. So those are just some of the items on our agenda. So in terms of our presentation tonight, we're here on 4 different charter amendments, and these are a direct result of issues that arose during the election for which we think we needed clarity. So this is not something that we chose arbitrarily. They are in direct response to issues that came up. And I suggest, because the law requires charter amendments to be done specific to each each issue, although they're all involving elections, so that's why there are 4 of them. And I think maybe we should take them in turn, and then that way, after we present them, you can ask for public discussion, and then let's do a consensus for that particular charter amendment.
Okay.
Do it one by one.
Okay.
Okay, so the first charter amendment is, and this is done via resolution, is to make clear in our charter and our code that all references to the city or Salisbury are to the actual municipal limits of the city of Salisbury. So that is our corporate name. It's just like a company. You want to make sure that you're known by its name. So our incorporation is City of Salisbury. That is our legal name. Through periodic and different amendments, sometimes, I'm not saying it's sloppy, but we will say Salisbury, or we will say city.
Yeah.
And I think it is implied that it is the City of Salisbury, but that is technically not our name. So what we've done is to add into the incorporation here that if we are making references to city or Salisbury, that it shall be the City of Salisbury. And this actually came about as a result of one of the issues in terms of what the city, or I think the reference was to Salisbury, so did that mean the municipal limits or outside the municipal limits? And so as you can see here, what we've done is just added the underlined italicized language, which says all references to the city, so one capital, one not capital, or Salisbury in this charter or to the Salisbury Municipal Code shall mean the City of Salisbury. And I think that will clear up any ambiguities.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay. Any comments, discussion, concerns?
No.
No? Okay. Do we have consensus?
No.
Perfect. Do we have consensus?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you have comment, or were you beating me to the consensus?
I didn't want you to think my no was the consensus.
Do we have consensus to move this
Yes.
forward?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, so now moving to the next resolution. This is a resolution to amend SC 2-2 of the city charter to further clarify the qualifications for the requirement to run for council and to also maintain a seat on council. So the changes are, again, highlighted. What's being added is italicized and underlined, and what is being removed is in the double bold bracket. So council members, we are removing shall have resided because we found that the term resided or resident was ambiguous in what that meant, and changing it to must have been domiciled, which is a legal definition, and there are a number of cases in which the Court of Appeals has opined about what it means to be domiciled and actual factors to consider. So now that we have guidance on determining what would be somebody's domicile. Here we had the situation where it's just a reference to Salisbury, which we've tried to address with the first resolution, but since we're making amendments to this particular charter provision, I went ahead and clarified that we are talking about the City of Salisbury and not Salisbury proper, whatever the zip code may be. And so, in short, we're striking any reference to resided and replacing it with domicile, which is a term of art for which if there's issues before our board, we can rely upon those cases.
Ashley?
Yes.
What is the technical difference between domicile and,
You can have multiple residents, but you can only have one domiciliary or be domiciled in one spot. That is where your intention to remain is. So you could, have multiple homes and declare different places to be your residence.
intention to remain or intention you've been living there?
I guess unless there are, could they be different or the same? That's when you look into, then there's various factors to consider.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it, go on.
It's where you file your taxes, it's where you're registered to vote.
These are all
that
definitions
kind of
under the
stuff.
domicile?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So I guess my further, for you all is how do you, what are the you said the factors thereof for proving, that you're domiciled.
Yes,
What
so
are-
we actually were going to put that in the campaign
Okay,
packet.
good.
Because we have seen other cities and towns within our state who have also opined on the subject. They use similar provisions in their charter, and particularly the city of Aberdeen has a great advisory opinion for which we're pulling some of that language.
Okay.
And then that way, if somebody is wanting to run for office, that they can read that and understand, okay, yes, like I meet this criteria, and then it
Sure.
also gives the board guidance, should there ever be an issue for us to look at that, okay, these are factors that we've considered, and so it just it provides guideposts.
Sure.
So the factors to be considered, would they be like proof of residency or proof of your domicile? Like
Yes,
your
so,
mortgage,
so
your-
I think that
rental
may be
agreement?
coming up in a different charter amendment.
Okay.
But in terms of the campaign, the candidate packet, okay, we are now having, with the changes, candidates sign under the penalties of perjury that they meet these requirements as opposed to just signing them. And then, Julie, do you have the revisions? Let me see. Perfect. We're also having the signatures now be notarized, which I think is
Ooh.
something that is new, and that we're adding language that says as follows: I understand that final acceptance of the certificate depends upon verification of the information provided by me, and that the City of Salisbury Election Board may seek additional information to discern my domiciliary intent and status. So therefore, if we're presented with any issues, this gives us the authority to ask for leases or tax records or whatever it may be to prove that that person is living where they say they're living.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any, any, any other questions or comments?
No?
No?
No.
Okay, we have consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Do we have? Oh, hold on one second. If we have comment, then we need to make sure you're up there and then. Thank you.
I just wanted to
If you
clarify.
could just mention your
I'm
name and
sorry,
your
Von
address.
Siggers,
Thank you.
Salisbury. Will your language include the corporate limits of the city of Salisbury or just the city of Salisbury? Because when you think of Baltimore, you have a Baltimore County, people are able to distinguish Baltimore County from Baltimore City. And I know that there were a number of people who came out in the last election who lived in the county who thought that they lived in the city,
Correct.
and by virtue, they could vote in the election. So will that say that corporate limits?
So in our charter, we already define what the City of Salisbury is. That's in SC 1-1. That was the first resolution that we discussed.
Yes.
Which identifies that that this is the City of Salisbury and defines what it is. That I believe SC, although we do not need to make changes with it, 1-2 goes and talks about the metes and bounds of the city and defines what actually is the City of Salisbury, and so the two are read in harmony. And so what we've done here is if we're just referring to city or Salisbury, now in light of the proposed amendment, that shall mean the corporate limits of
Corporate
the City of
limits.
Salisbury. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yep,
Thank you.
yep. Okay, so moving to the next resolution, which is a resolution to amend SC 3-2 of the city charter to further clarify the qualification requirements to run for the office of mayor. And they just are the same as we just discussed for council. So we are adding the underlined italicized language and removing the language within the double bold brackets. And again, to highlight that is just to replace resided with domiciled, and making clear, although we've already addressed the issue about the city in the first charter amendment, might as well make it clear here, since we're already doing amendment, that we are talking about the City of Salisbury, the corporate limits. I made it a little more gender neutral since we were already making changes.
Yeah, that was, I saw
And
that.
as well as, for whatever reason, the language for the charter amendment for mayor did not include the word registered where it is for the council, so we wanted to make that consistent as well.
Registered.
Yep.
Qualified registered voter, so you have to be a registered voter.
18 or older, right.
Yeah.
Right. Let me ask you, I'm just
But you must be
clarifying.
21 for mayor.
I know I don't look it, but hey. What was there was some discretion, the mayor has to be a resident of the city for a year, but the city council, all you have to be is a resident of the district at the time of filing. Is that correct? Or do they both have to be residents of the city for a year?
I don't want to misspeak, but I think you have to be.
Under section
Yes.
2, it states,
Resident for a year.
Okay, both.
At
So
that
you're
district.
Yes.
so if you read section 2 of SC 2-2, it says,
Right.
must be domiciled in the city of Salisbury for at least 1 year immediately preceding their election, and council members from each district shall be domiciled in the boundaries of the district from which they are elected on the date of filing for
Yes.
election.
Yeah, but not a year. You don't have
That
to
is
be there.
correct. You have to be a city resident for a year, but when you file, at the time you filed, that is where,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was both. You had to be a resident of the district
Yeah.
that you were filing for a year. But you
No.
don't. You have to be a resident of the city. Okay.
Correct, that's how it's always been, and I don't
Okay.
know that
Yeah.
there was any need to make that change, but that is, consistent between council and mayor, that you need to live in the city for a year. But in terms of running for council, you just need to be living in the district at the time you file to run for
But
election.
there's no one-year residency requirement.
That is correct,
Okay.
for that piece of it.
And you do have to remain in that district while
During
you're
the term.
in that position.
Yes.
What happens if you move out? You're subject to being,
Then you vacate, correct.
you have to vacate? Okay,
Yes.
Okay.
If there's notice of, yes, it
Yeah.
states that,
Right.
at which point council would, elect or, appoint someone else. Councilwoman Jackson, I think you have a question or concern?
Yeah, because I'm kind of confused here, because I always thought that, I know you had to be a resident of the city, but I also thought that you had to be, and living in that district, well, I guess it's about the same thing, because you're living in the city of Salisbury, but living in that district, you don't have to be there for a year, you just, but this is confusing me, because didn't someone just get, couldn't run for election because they weren't in that district for a year?
No, they
No.
didn't live in the city for a year.
Yeah,
Correct.
it was a matter of city residence,
They didn't live in the city for a year.
correct.
They did not.
So maybe sure we're clear. If you're running for city
you're right.
council, if you're running for city council, you have to be a resident of the city for a year, but only at the time, just a resident of the district at the time of filing.
Correct.
Okay, so we're clear on that, okay. I'm sorry. I'm a little learning to say. I'm sorry.
That's why we have the work session.
Yes.
Yeah.
Any other comments, concerns? No? Okay. Seeing none, do we have consensus to move this forward?
Yes.
Sure.
Yes.
Yes. All right, thank you.
So the final resolution before you is a resolution to amend Section 6 of the city charter, which is governing elections, specifically to amend SC 6-6 governing nominations and SC 6-9 governing the election of mayor and council, and adding a brand-new section, SC 6-16, which provides the requirements for write-in campaigns, which is something that I think it was not heretofore addressed and came up in this particular election. So first, addressing SC 6-6 nomination, adding the underlined italicized language, shall be filed under oath. Remember how we kind of just walked through the changes to that campaign candidate packet there, so we're making clear that it's filed under the penalties of perjury, and we're also adding the addition, it being notarized. And then adding here, and any other information required by the City of Salisbury Election Board. Remember how I read about that the accepted, by signing, the board wasn't necessarily accepting it, that gave us the authority to ask for further details. And so the authority for that is what we've added here by saying, and any other information required by the City of Salisbury Election Board. So just to confirm someone's domiciliary.
Sure.
Can I ask one quick question,
Yes.
Mr. President? Under, let's see where to have it, line 46, right there above what you just said. It said is seeking a statement that the person is qualified to be a candidate for that office. Who is that person that would be, who is the person qualified to give that commitment or that statement?
The person who is applying.
The person's
Yes.
applying, okay. I didn't know if it was coming from somebody else that was present when they filed. Okay.
Right.
All right, thank you.
My question pertains to the italicized, the underlined verbiage, line 47, about any information required by the city election board. Is that legalese protected? So again, of the person that the election board can't ask any erroneous details of the person who's filing. They can't ask for any details that aren't pertinent to I'm just making sure, again, in any information required by the Salisbury Election Board, they can't team together and ask for information that's unwarranted. I just want to make sure of that.
Yes.
We are,
Yeah.
okay, I just want to make sure that they can't ask for, I don't know, information that's not pertinent to.
Do you want to maybe say in any other information required by the City of Salisbury Election Board?
Does that question make sense?
I'm just trying to think of an example. What do you mean by that?
So
We wanted follow-up information.
Anything and everything? Go.
I mean,
Like, what's your?
Like, how are we going to verify? Like say I lived on Camden Avenue for a year. Well, I've lived there for a year. But what if there was some question? How would we document that they've lived there for the year?
So that wasn't my question. I don't want to get off topic from my question. I want to make sure we're getting that. So again, any information required by the City of Salisbury Election Board, what I'm saying is, can that election board, that body of 4 or 5, whoever the individuals are, if they pull together and say, oh, we need the mileage of your vehicle, again, I'm just making erroneous thing, but that's not, I don't deem that necessary to be required by the election board, or that doesn't make it right for me to run or be an elected official.
Limit the amount of questions relative to your.
I just want to make sure it's pertinent, that they don't have the opportunity to ask me anything that's not pertinent to this position I'm running for.
So could we say in any other information required by the City of Salisbury Election Board to determine,
Eligibility?
like, to determine
Eligibility
or something,
Yeah.
so that makes it relevant?
Yeah, relative
They
to
don't-
their
they
relative
don't-
to their eligibility.
They can't unilaterally decide that they want more information on
No.
any candidate at any
Yes.
time. We'd have to tighten that up, because it also could potentially be alienating and doing some end around, so.
Yeah.
And all of that stuff goes through the clerk's office anyway, so we would know if they were out in left field somewhere asking for information from a candidate that wasn't justified. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
I just want to
Where
make
the
sure.
hell is coming from, anyway? Oh.
Yeah.
So how about if we added to determine eligibility, right? I mean, that's the sole purpose
I just
of
want to
it.
make sure it's protected, so if you think that that adding that language protects the individual, the individual running, and
I
also
do.
the
I mean,
election board.
I don't think that to be frank with you, I don't think the election board would, on the advice of legal counsel, would not have a sanctioned or allow that.
So when I ask these questions, I'm not asking for these, I'm
Yeah.
not saying you all, but what I'm saying is, when we do this, I have to think about someone who's acting, justly, but I also have to think about, does this information here give them the right to ask me for any piece of information that has my name on it that I don't think is deemed necessary for, and again, forgive me if I'm going down a rabbit hole, but I'm just saying, this is why I think I'm here, is to make sure that.
Sure, so I think when defining
'Cause
eligibility, I
any
think
of the
within that
information-
criteria of that packet, so if you're saying, I need something that has a return address, I need a tax return, but you can't say, I also need birth certificate, like, you can't just start adding a list of additional requirements.
But given this, they could determine that is just
Yeah, sure.
saying any of the information required. They could say, oh, I need your blood results.
Or how many dogs you have.
Yeah, they could, I mean, I don't like, this language is too.
So how about if other pertinent information required by the City of Salisbury Election Board to determine eligibility?
Yeah,
I
for
like that
that
a little bit
purpose.
better.
Yeah.
It must be limited to the items which
Yes.
fortify them.
Yes.
But I guess it's not only a question of residency, but it's also a question of time. So I could give you an electric bill for March, or for February, but that doesn't mean I've lived in there for a year. So what kind of stuff would be, I know in the case of a lease in some cases, but if you own your home and you just bought it, pick a number 2 years ago, 3 years ago, I guess that's evidence.
That's evidence, that would be, yes.
And that you've been living there would be so some combination would prove residency, domicile, whatever.
Yes.
Same thing the Department of Motor Vehicle does when you go to get your license.
Yes.
They do the same thing.
Yes.
But tax returns would be a little
Yeah.
revealing if you had to give your whole tax return.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be up to
The person.
the
The-
candidate to provide what
Right.
they felt
It
would
has to prove
answer
two
that
things,
question.
domicile and time,
Correct,
length of time, okay.
Yeah.
Whatever that looks like.
yes.
And that's where the board comes in. That information would be presented to the board.
Okay.
And they would determine if that was satisfactory to prove what they were trying to prove.
So all applications go to the board? Or does it handle at the administration?
So, no, just the
I
clerk's
didn't hear what
office.
you
Okay.
asked.
The mayor was asking if all applications go to the board. And
No.
I answered and said, no, the clerk's
If
office.
there's some question, it goes to the board.
Yes.
Right.
Good question,
Right.
yes.
I don't think they,
There's some doubt.
I don't think they.
Any other comments or questions from council and administration?
Hold on, I
No.
think we still have,
Oh.
Yeah.
so to be clear, we've just gotten through SC 6-6, and I will make provisions to make clear that it's relevant and pertinent information to determine eligibility, so it's not so broad.
Yes.
Okay?
I
Moving
see,
to,
I got you. Yep. give me one.
moving to SC 6-9.
Yes.
The election of mayor and council, we just wanted to add, and in accordance with Maryland state law and regulations. This is because our code is not as extensive of the state law. So whenever we're silent on an issue, we've always just deferred to what the state election article says. And so we did that in this election, and there were some issues with that, with like what preempted, and so we decided just to make clear that if our code was silent on a particular issue, we would follow the state election law and regulation.
Not the county.
Correct.
Because that has been
State.
verbiage, is that it goes by county, but no, we're saying if our code has any, is there any question from us, we go from us to the state.
Just to the state.
Great, thank you.
And then adding section SC 16 for write-in campaigns. Our code and charter had absolutely nothing about write-in campaigns. So what we're adding is that an individual who seeks election for any public office in the government of the city of Salisbury as a write-in candidate shall file a certificate of candidacy with the city clerk in the form and by the deadline required by Maryland state law and regulation. Any write-in campaign and voting for a write-in candidate shall be governed by Maryland state law and regulation. Again, so it's just easy to defer to what
Sure.
the state does here. So there are going to be 3 different changes to Chapter 6 of our charter, which governs elections generally. And now we've talked about all of those. And just to be clear, sounds like we will be making the recommended changes by President Dougherty to the SC 6-6, but it sounds like maybe nothing else, but I'll let you call the vote on it.
Yes. Any other comments, concerns?
Not on that
Okay,
section.
I think we have a public comment, if you want to.
Okay, yes.
I'm not sure which number it is. It's the one with the language with you having the authority to, I'm sorry, Von Siggers again, City of Salisbury. Where you're trying to determine the permission for the board to request more information. That still seems rather ambiguous to me. And you may not be the person serving on the board at that time, but you give somebody an opportunity to really put somebody in a precarious situation without having specificities on what you're going to require. Because you might, I don't know, we could digress back to those tests that we had to do once upon a time just to be able to vote. You need to have some specificities in there as to what you're going to require, because you may not require the same thing of me that you're going to require of Angela. And I don't want to have to show up and try to have another battle to register to vote and then have to try to fight you on why I have permission to register to vote or to register to run for office or what have you, and you're going to have such ambiguous language in there as that. That gives you too much power to determine that I do not qualify to run.
I understand what you're saying. I feel like it is difficult to have the specificity that, like, because, you know, some people may own, some people may lease, some people might, you know, there might be like employment records or school records. I just don't know if there's a one size that fits all. So to say like, we're going to determine it by leases, land records, and what are some of the other common ones that we have? We have a list that's going to be in the candidate packet. And so I would think that to go outside of that list would be improper.
So you do have specificities.
Correct.
You do have a list.
I just don't think that we want it in the charter because we may decide that we want to change that list at some point, and then it's in the candidate packet, which will come before you guys excuse me for the informalness of that, which will come before council
Yes.
For approval, so that way you can see that. But, you know, generally, it's easier to make amendments to the candidate packet than it would be to do this resolution process in terms of changing the charter amendment. So the list, which will not necessarily be exhaustive, but you could see kind of the tone and tenor of what's being required, it will be as in whenever anybody runs for office, they pick up the packet and it will have that in there. So I would say if you go outside of that list, that would be presumptively improper.
So everything on this list, I should be prepared to provide for you. I mean, there ought to be some criteria by which I am able to register to run for office and not have to look at a whole litany of stuff that you might take into account, because I have to persuade you that I qualify. I mean, is that list going to be in priority? Like, this is priority, but what? What about this one? I mean, you can just pick stuff to put somebody in a precarious situation. You need to be specific, because you put in some people's hands the opportunity to just rough up somebody that you might not even want to run for office, or somebody, you know, you just take too much for granted here. I don't want my opportunities to be determined by you if you're just going to pick, well, what about this? I think you need to have this. And then somebody else might want you to have this. Specify what is required so that everybody will have the equal opportunity to provide the status, the information that is required of a potential candidate. Not that you have to determine by your list of things. If that list is that significant, everybody should provide everything on that list. If you're just going to be able to pick and choose what somebody else ought to be able to validate, then that could be a long, drawn-out process. Time is of the essence. Funds are of the essence. You put too much of opportunity in somebody else's hand to prevent somebody else's potential.
So why don't we do this? I have a recommendation if you don't mind.
I'm sorry, hold on one second.
Yep.
I think you're done. Is your comment?
Yeah, but I think
Okay.
I'm on the same wave.
Yes.
So how about we work on that candidate packet and we
Yes.
table this one until we get the candidate packet, since they are kind of
looks
like
like-
in tandem?
Yep.
And then that way we can make sure that we're comfortable with
Yes.
the list, and if it's like, I don't think and I don't want to speak on Susan's behalf, I don't think the intent of the board is to, you know, have someone to put through the ringer,
Sure.
but we need to have some type of checks and balances. So we'll try
Yeah.
to work on that packet so that way that intent comes clear, and then you can look at it, and I think multiple heads are better than one. We can get that straight, and then once we do, then I think maybe we can feel more comfortable with the language in this charter
got it.
amendment.
I don't mean to.
I don't want to.
Would you be, oh, sorry.
Give me one
Could
second.
I-
I think, yep, so Councilwoman Jackson had her, yes.
Yeah, could I say something? I just said something about the Department of Motor Vehicle with their lineage and of how when you go to get your renew your license, there is, I can tell you about 20 items on there that you could possibly need. I'm like Vaughn, Siggers. I mean, if we're going to put specifics, then we need to put specifics. We need to know what people need, and people need to know what they need. It shouldn't be a pick and choose. I choose this. It should be a thing. Okay, if I'm going to register and I need, and these are the things I may have. I may have my lease. I may have my birth certificate, which you don't need. I'm just saying. I need a bill from my home stating that that's where I live, a driver's license stating that's where I live. Those are the things that we need. Even if a person owns a home, then they should have their deed or whatever. If that's what it's going to take to get them to be able to run for office, and if we need proof to validate that is where they live, then that's what we need to do. And I think that the specifics are what we need. We really need the specifics.
Yeah.
Because if we don't get the specifics, then people are going to, like Vaughn said, the people are going to pick and choose what somebody needs and what they want or what they have to have. We need to put down what's really needed.
I think there needs to be kind of a preponderance of the evidence. I mean, most cases, people are going to shoot you straight and come in and they're going to vote. But there was an instance, and I can just think of this one a number of years ago, where a guy ran for mayor in the city of Salisbury, who owned a building and had an apartment above, and he used that address as his residency, but he actually lived in Del Mar. I won't say his name, but he actually ran for mayor. So it does happen, and is it really fair to the rest of us as citizens? So I think there needs to be kind of a preponderance of the evidence, multiple maybe, that you flesh out. And then if you're not even certain, then maybe there's some mechanism for which to get personal testimony that the person is actually residing.
That's when it would revert to a hearing like we've had
Have a hearing.
before the board. Correct.
Okay.
Could we possibly put, since we're talking about the charter, could you put somewhere in there, Ashley, where refer to the campaign packet in some way, shape, or form, so then it's not specified that would have to be changed, because wouldn't you always have a campaign packet?
Yes.
And make reference to that, so that would back up what they may ask for?
Sure.
I'm just, I don't know if that would help clarify this piece, and then they would definitely go together moving forward.
Yeah.
I feel like there's still a little bit of confusion, and I just want to make sure I say this out loud, that there's going to be a list of qualification items that the individual who is running gets to pick from, not the clerk's office or the election board gets to tell you which to provide.
Correct.
So it's, you get to pick as the candidate from a menu, not the other way around.
Correct.
Yes, thank you. But I want to make sure everyone got their comment out, and I think that's where we are, so.
President Downey, may I ask a question?
Yes.
So, to Vaughn and April, just so that I understand, are you saying that you would want that information that's listed to be turned in with the campaign packet initially?
Well, is that what is required?
No,
No.
not
So you're
currently.
saying these are things that we can choose from to determine if you are actually qualified to run, and we're going to determine by this list?
So the way that my mind is going right now, there would be two options for this. You would have requirements to turn in this, and this with your campaign packet. That would solidify where you reside. Or you turn in your campaign packet. If there are questions, or if we receive a complaint that the board would need to look into, then those additional items would be requested. So I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
You're saying they're not required.
Not initially, currently, they are not, correct.
But if you have some question, this is a list of things that you can go to determine
Correct,
that you're
correct.
actually qualified. Enough. I mean, I can understand that, but that still puts somebody in a precarious situation.
I do, mentioning those two items, you will put yourself in a difficult situation if you do not require everybody to do that, because then there could be, well, I want that person to give me all the additional information, but you five are fine, but you must. I would recommend everyone does it. If you're going to ask for requirements, it is just submitted up front, so you don't even give an opportunity for people to work the system and hope not to get caught.
which is why, and I think that was something we can address when we review the campaign packet, because that would be included in the campaign packet. But initially, I have to say, going through this process of the election myself, and this was my first time doing it, I personally think it would be very beneficial to request whatever documentation we feel we may need upfront
Oh,
from
yeah.
everyone who turns in a packet. That
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
you're asking the same of everyone, and you're getting the information that solidifies your eligibility.
Yes.
That's just my take on it, but we can certainly discuss it at the next meeting.
Yes. Thank
I agree.
Perfect. I think we're all on the same page, and just to round it out, I mean, your state-issued or government-issued ID would most likely have your address. So I think
Yes.
it can be as simple as that. It
It
doesn't have to
can.
be go into your filing cabinet and get, I mean, our state-issued IDs should have your domiciliary address on it. But if you want to close, if you want to close us out?
So I think, let's, in order, because in terms of resolutions, there has to be publications in newspapers and whatnot.
40
Since we're
days,
holding
yeah.
off on this one, I suggest that we don't move forward on the first three either, just to
Okay.
save, frankly, the city some
Sure.
money in terms of advertising costs. And they're all tracking at the same time. We are meeting on Thursday, so we can address these concerns promptly and try to get the campaign packet in order, and then we'll come back on another work session agenda to address this particular issue, at which time maybe we can just reiterate that we have consensus to move it all forward.
Please, yes.
And do it that way.
Great.
But while we're here, let's go ahead and talk about the ordinance, which will make an amendment to our code, because we also felt like there needed to be some changes to the election code. So proposed before you is an ordinance of the City of Salisbury amending Chapter 1.08. That is the section of the city code entitled Election Board, to adopt recommendations made by the City Election Board regarding the application for mail-in ballots and the canvassing of ballots. So these are more just kind of housekeeping matters that we found through this election. One of the ones is just when our county election board, they pick up their mail, which they do at 10 in the morning. So there's references to 4 p.m. that made it a little difficult for us. So we're just cleaning it up. And any reference to 4 p.m. is now 10 a.m. because that's when they run out and either get their mail or they do their mail run. And that is in the canvassing of ballots. I jumped ahead. Before that is a change to Chapter 1.08.220, the application for mail-in ballots. We did allow for mail-in ballots to be received by mail, fax, and email. And so there was some question there. So now we are making clear that we're using the deadlines set by the Maryland state law and regulation, again, deferring to the state for mail-in ballots to be received by, and just to be clear, we are allowing them by mail, fax, and we use more broadly internet. I mean, that would include email. I can think of maybe some other way, but just to make it more broad.
How do you I never understood that. How do you verify a vote by fax? I understand that.
This is not verifying the vote. This is requesting
Oh.
a mail-in ballot.
Yes.
So you could submit your
Getting
request,
it.
yes, to get
Okay,
it.
okay.
Yes.
Thank you. But we're not asking for consensus. We're gonna,
I think
would you want us to move
we
forward?
can move this one forward. It doesn't have to track with the resolutions. It is an ordinance, so it
Okay.
just requires 2 readings.
Sure.
But we could also just do them all together, whatever your preference is.
I think we should do them all together. Let's
Okay.
just, if you don't mind, let's
Yep.
just do them all together. Thank you for explaining that and for answering.
Yeah.
And thank you, Election Board President, Ms. Carey. Thank you for being here and for the work that you do. We appreciate it, yes. All right, moving forward with administration and council comments. We'll go to admin first. City Administrator, Mr. Kittredge.
I'll defer.
Yeah, I'll defer. I think we've had a long meeting, but we're good. Yeah,
Okay.
we're good.
Sure. All right. Council Vice President Blake.
The only thing I want to say is, President Dowdy, can we add, for the next work session, I'd like to get an update on the Salisbury Townhouse project, Salisbury Townhouse Center project or Salisbury Town Center? I forget, there's been a couple interchangeable names to that project. An update on the Mitchell Landing project and an update on the Ann Street Village project. Those 3 items, just to get an
want them now?
update. Huh?
Right now, you mean?
No, for next work session.
Oh,
But, of course, if you're healthy enough, please donate
Could
blood.
you read those one more time for me, Angela?
Yeah,
Ann Street, I got.
the Mitchell Landing project, and then, is it the Salisbury Town Center?
Salisbury Town Center.
Center, okay, Salisbury Town Center project.
Thank you.
In
You're welcome.
Ann Street?
Yeah, Ann Street Village.
Gotcha.
Update on those 3 things.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Councilwoman Jackson? Oh, you are muted, Ms. Jackson. Thank you.
I would like to do a Black History moment, and my Black History moment would be about Miss Loretta B. Jolly, who owned a funeral home for over 50 years, and it is still thriving under the name of Hal and Jolly on Jersey Road. They had a street naming event for her about maybe 6 years ago. And for an African-American woman to own a business for 50 years is astounding. And I'm just, she's not here anymore, neither is her daughter, but her daughter's son, which is Miss Jolly's grandson, is moving the business forward. So I'm just saying, this is a moment that we should remember. These are people that we should remember in our city and even in our county. Miss Jolly, her name was Loretta B. Jolly. She had the street named after. It's North and South Carolina Road, which was named in her honor. And as I said, 50-plus years and still thriving. She is Black history, and her businesses as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Jackson, for underscoring that. And yes, they are a very, they're a staple in the community, especially on the west side. So thank you for that Black History moment. And so I don't think we should restrict these to February. I think we should charge you with having a Black History moment every council meeting.
I can.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gregory.
Yeah, hi. I also wanted to ask for an update on the town center project. I'd like to hear something. Would it be possible? I know next week is a legislative session. Would it be possible to have a special meeting to discuss that as a special work session?
I think both of Mitchell Landing and Salisbury Town Center have to be done in closed session.
Oh, give me one moment. So, Councilwoman Gregory asked for a special meeting for
You say special?
that project?
For next week?
For next week for the town center, just because I know that there are big things coming up, and I'd like to get just if nothing else for raising public awareness of what's going on, with that project soon starting. So I'd love to, I'd love to get something out there as soon as possible. If we could get that on the agenda sooner rather than later.
Well, you realize that project's
If you want to give
currently
me
on hold, right?
one moment.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So, are you asking for a?
Yeah, I'm asking for a special session on Monday if possible. Either after our legislative session, or if that would be too long of an evening, maybe on the Friday.
I think we would have to entertain a motion. Yes. If so, I'll entertain a motion. If you want to make that, Councilwoman Gregory.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we hold a special session to get an update on the Salisbury Town Center.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of having a special meeting on referring to the Salisbury Town Center project, signify by saying aye.
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 Need to make sure.
Oh, sorry, aye.
And the
When
chair
is-
votes.
I just want to make
Go ahead, Councilwoman Jackson.
When is it going to be?
Monday after the legislative session.
Okay, it's fine,
Great.
it's fine.
And the chair votes aye.
Thank you.
President
Thank
Dowdy,
Thank you.
Well,
could we just check with administration and make sure they will have enough time to get the information to present
Oh.
by that time?
Well, now the-
I don't know what's involved in all that.
both of them have.
Well, now the motion has been placed
To-
and seconded, so it
To
it
do
seems
a
like.
special meeting, yes.
I got you, yep.
But I don't think the motion was for a specific
Well, it's for an
day.
update. I believe it's for an update.
Yeah.
Miss-
For an
Councilman
update.
Gregory
That was
and
part of my motion.
An update,
Gotcha.
yeah.
For an update. I don't think it shouldn't take
No, it shouldn't.
that long for them to gather that kind of
It's
information.
just the nature of,
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
are we done?
And then I just want to remind folks out there, thank you guys, I appreciate you humoring me on that. I just want to remind folks that COVID is still out there. There's a lot of talk about there being a mystery virus being around. No mystery, it is a strain of COVID that is going around. It is not showing up on tests because the tests that are over the counter currently do not account for these new strains. So please make sure you are, even if you are testing negative, if you are feeling poorly, please stay home.
Wow.
For the sake of the community, please stay home. It is going around rampant, and numbers are up. So please think of folks who are immunocompromised, kids who cannot get vaccines, young ones who are under the vaccination age, that sort of thing. Please be mindful of folks like those, marginalized communities like the disabled community, many of whom cannot get the vaccines for various reasons. Please be mindful. Mask up if you are indoors in an area that is populated by a large number of people. Just be careful, okay? All right, thanks, guys.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
Have a good
Gregory.
evening.
Yeah. Councilwoman DeShield?
I would like to publicly thank two gentlemen, Russell and Adam, from the Waterworks Utility Department, because someone in my district was thrilled that they showed up right away and solved their problem within an hour's
Wow.
time.
Oh, my goodness.
My other thing is a challenge for those of you that are not familiar with Hands and Hearts Ending Homelessness. We have a 5-month shelter that is housed behind the Seventh-day Adventist Church on Deer Run Drive, just beyond the Shorebirds. We have 33 occupants just as of right now, and are able, if we have freezing weather, to take a couple more. But I talked with Director Miraboda today, and have convinced him that asked him if his entire department would be willing to supply a dinner one night, and he has said yes. And so we are putting out the challenge to the rest of the departments in the city to come up and sign up for one night. And we have a circular that Julie has, and it will be around, but all you have to do is just Google HHEH, and that will give you the information where you can go and sign up and pick a night. And thank you, Mayor Taylor, who is going to be working registration next Thursday.
All right.
So,
And I think
please follow us.
I think council will be signing up for a night, so we're excited for that. Yeah.
I've already done my night.
All right. Well, you'll do another one with council as well, so.
But out in the community, anybody that's willing, we don't close till the middle of April, and we have a lot of nights available. It's a hot meal for 35 people, and we ask you to deliver it. You don't have to stay, but you're welcome. We'd love you to stay if you wanted, and a dessert. And any questions you have? Well, welcome any input. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman DeShield, yeah, for that charge and for that there. So I'll keep mine brief. Again, we'll make sure we pay our respects and keep our thoughts with the with Brian's family, of course, in our Salisbury Fire Department. This is a very hard time for them, and we'll make sure we pay our respects tomorrow to he and his family and friends. And thank you, Councilwoman Jackson, for that tribute to Black History Month, because again, these 29 days are important to our community. I had the pleasure of going this Sunday to the governor's house to spend time with Governor Wes Moore for his Black History celebration. I got a nice picture and got to interact with him, and I made sure he knew what Salisbury was. He's like, yeah, I know Salisbury. I said, of course you do, because our former mayor, Jake Day, he is serving our state now. He was excited, but he was excited more so for what Salisbury is going to be and the great work we're doing here. So I made sure to underscore that with him. And I think, and tonight, so I'm going to wrap this up because I am late, 48 minutes late for the Bayside Championship while high girls are playing, and my cousin is there. Hopefully she's going to reach her 1,000 points either today or, she's a sophomore.
She will.
So 1,000 points to the Civic Center. So with that, this meeting is now adjourned. 1,000 points.